Hello, friends. Welcome back to Trending. Today is Thursday, September 7th. It's about 9:30 as we're recording. Good morning, Joe.
How's it going?
Good. Ready to do this thing again?
Let's do it, man. Football is back.
Football's back. Can't wait to watch my Chiefs tonight.
Your Chiefs.
They're my Chiefs. It's my Patrick Mahomes. I got him on my fantasy team this year, so I'm ready to just cheer a little extra harder for my friend Patty.
Let's see what they do, man. They got a list of cast-offs for wide receiver this year.
They do, but I mean, they kind of did last year, though. Well, I mean, they got rid of Juju this year, but I don't know. I'm still feeling good.
All right, man.
I'm just so ready for football to be back.
Okay.
Most wonderful time of the year.
So, some people think, I've been told that I use too many sports images in sermons.
Okay.
Not too many. That sounds negative. I use a lot.
Yes.
In fact, I heard that there's like a over/under minute bet.
Wow.
On when the first one will happen in a sermon.
Sports reference?
Yes.
You need to intentionally drop one at 63 seconds in.
63 seconds in.
Just
all right.
To mess with the over-under a little bit.
But then, some people aren't sports fans.
I know.
And I forget that. And so, you got to be hospitable. What does Paul say? Become all things to all people.
Yeah.
That I might win some.
That's
right.
true. That's true.
So maybe some horticultural references.
There you go.
I don't know.
I like it. Well, today we have a story that is not sports related.
Okay.
So we're going to do, this has kind of become a new thing where I've got kind of an idea. I've got several little bits and pieces I'm just going to toss at you.
Okay. All right.
So last night I was...
Lightning round.
Yeah, it's lightning round.
Yeah.
I watched a video last night, read a couple articles this morning that are kind of on a similar theme. It's kind of in the news world a little bit. So I've been just not very closely, but I've been kind of keeping an eye on the whole Disney CEO situation. Okay. So Bob Iger was CEO for, I think, 20-some years, super successful. Disney, I'm not going to get all the numbers right, but quadrupled the revenue under his leadership. Pretty widely regarded as a really good leader. Disney, under his leadership, they did all the Marvel and Star Wars, and Disney just jumped under his leadership. He stepped down in 2020, and it was kind of a big deal in business world. Who's going to take over Disney? There was kind of this big hubbub. They picked this guy, Bob Chapek. I'm not exactly sure how to say his name. He was CEO for, I think, about 2 years. He took over right when COVID hit, so obviously not a great time.
Sure.
He used to be over their parks division.
Oh, okay.
Did a great job leading their parks, but then obviously during COVID, all their parks shut down.
Right.
And under his leadership, Disney's stock kind of tanked a little bit, but a lot of people say that it's a lot of the decisions from Iger's era that led to some of the decline. Whole thing, right? Long story short, Chapek, whatever, is out, and Iger's back in as CEO.
Okay.
So that's been a whole ongoing thing. Also, kind of similar, but maybe not, similar news. It's kind of heartbreaking to see all the Mitch McConnell stuff. He's had some really rough press conferences where he's clearly has some kind of health issue. I think they're not really sure what's causing it. And when you watch it, it's just scary.
Yeah.
You feel for him and his team.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's just heartbreaking to see things like that happen. Getting close to election time, Trump and Biden are most likely going to be the front runners. They're both up there in age. They're going to be the oldest candidates again this year. So I just thought we could talk a little bit about age and leadership and succession. There's kind of some high-profile things happening around that conversation right now. Our current Congress, I think, is the third oldest in U.S. history. There's a lot of congressmen who are a little bit older. This is kind of in my mind this week. I had a doctor's appointment early this week just to check up, and I was in the waiting room, and I heard this lady talking to her friend, and she said, I really would like to have a new job, but I'm in my 60s, and nobody wants to hire me because I'm 60 whatever, and I can't find anyone who wants to hire me. So this is hard, Joe, because we don't want to be ageist. No one wants to be ageist, but it's also this kind of weird thing where, at least in my view, it seems like some people who are currently in pretty high positions of leadership are pretty hesitant to pass the reins on to the next generation, which I don't blame them. That's probably how I would feel if I was in their shoes. So again, I'm tossing a lot of things at you. What sticks in your mind, and are you following this at all? Age, leadership, succession, what's kind of top of mind for you?
Okay, there's a lot going on there.
Yes.
I guess I would say, even as a big, what I find is even as a bigger organization as Disney is, and as big as Congress is, there seems to be this appeal to can we keep things more or less the way they've always been because of the uncertainty ahead? What's interesting about the human experience is we can reflect on the past. We can kind of calculate what's going to happen next. But I think that what we don't know what could happen really does paralyze us. It does allow us to maybe a lot of anxiety. And so I think the way that we amend that is we say, let's try to keep a status quo. I think there's also something going on in our cultural moment. Someone has referred to this as the storming of the cathedral, where both on right and left perspectives, you have folks wanting to topple over what precedent has been. What used to be maybe like more on the left, wanting to bring seismic change to things. Now it seems to be animating some parts of the right as well. And so I think that for those who would rather not see what might be around the bend if there is a toppling over of institutions, I think there is a wanting to hold on to institutional power or the status quo until we kind of weather the next storm. And so it doesn't seem to be all that surprising that from Disney to Congress to church world to other institutional structures that this seems to be the case. And so I think it's just one of those things where, is it going to be like this 10 years from now? Maybe. But I think what we do see, and I think this is actually kind of a healthier perspective, G.K. Chesterton said, there's not a valuable vote, I'm going to paraphrase here, unless tradition gets to cast a vote too. I think that's kind of an important thing. And I think the older I get, the more I find comfort in some of the patterns and the grooves of what has been before. I think when we're younger, maybe it's naivete, maybe it's just we have a lot more energy, maybe we have a lot more unrealized hope. But I think we think change everywhere is the best. Like something new is actually better, as Barney Stinson says. Newer is always my one rule. Newer is better, right? But I think one of the things that doesn't dawn on us is if we want seismic change in anything, it tends to happen slower than we want, and it tends to have a whole lot more complex issues than we imagined. So I think it was Shane Claiborne who said that everybody wants revival or change, but no one wants to do the dishes. Right? And so I think when it gets down to the brass tacks of seismic change, it's a great idea. Bunch of aspiration. We tend to lack on perspiration or really want to see it all the way through. And so I do think that when we get in like these tense moments where life's moving at us pretty fast, ground beneath us seems to be moving. I think we say, hey, let's go back to the age-old traditions. And just some that's going to sound very stuffy. But I think the older that I get, I think there's more comfort in that because I think we join ourselves with a long tradition. So can we still renovate what has been? Absolutely, we need to. But maybe we need to have a more appropriate idea of how change happens. I think it was Scott McKnight in his book called Tove, The Church Called Tove. He says it does take about 10 years to change a culture within a community. We want it to happen overnight. And sure, revolutionary change gets you in the newspapers. Evolutionary change seems to be more kind and considerate and hospitable, and it tends to have like a longer longevity, and impact, on human lives. So. And
it's kind of what we talked about last week, right? The whole disruption versus the kind of the slow burn of change over time. You need both. There's a reason why slow things, like old things that work for a long time, there's a reason why they work for a long time.
Right.
And we also need innovation. I think this was maybe another example of that.
So
I guess we're also in this kind of this season at Ridgepoint where we're talking a lot about mentoring, right? Which I think that's part of this conversation too. So maybe, I don't know what else you have to say, but maybe we could start to wrap up by, let's talk to some of the older and some of the younger folks watching or listening. So if someone is maybe on the upper end, they've been in leadership for a long time, what would you say to them? And for the kind of those up and coming behind them, what would you say to them?
I think this kind of goes back to what we shared about education. Something happens when we transition from adolescence to adulthood. It doesn't happen overnight. We don't have a rite of passage in our culture and time. So it's kind of a slow burn. And I think it's good that what I admire about late adolescent age is that there's a lot of enthusiasm, there's a lot of hope, there's a lot of energy, and there is fresh ideas that we must take seriously. We must be innovative and inventive. We have to. I do think that as we merge into adulthood, though, the quicker we can get to that position of, I have some ideas, but I could be wrong about this, and I want to go look for the answers. I want to go look for where I am deficient and weak. I want to find strength and support.
Yeah.
I think the quicker that we can do that, the better. I think a mentoring community, whether it's one-to-one or one to a few, really does help with that, because you get to bring all of your honest questions, and a good mentor will draw from their own experience. They'll go out looking with curiosity if they don't have an answer. And I think over time, there's actually a mutual encouragement. I think it's something that Paul tries to hatch with the church in Rome.
Yeah.
He wants to come among them, impart a spiritual gift so that we could be mutually encouraged by one another's faith. So even though he's like big time apostle, you know, the bee's knees in the first century church, he's like, I still got a ways to go, right?
Yeah.
I think for the older Christians among us, I think that we have to recognize that as we gain wisdom and pile up experiences, perhaps maybe energy can wane as well. And so there is the necessity to be stitched together with somebody who's younger and who's enthusiastic and energetic. And I think there's I think the wisdom traditions would tell us, the quicker that we can be comfortable giving things away, the better. You and I will watch people get older, and there's one of two options, one of two doors as we get older. Yeah. We either have stuff taken from us because we're not able to care for them, and it got away from us. We got too old too quickly, as one of my sets of grandparents told me, and they didn't have the joy of giving things away. Yeah. Things were taken from them. The quicker, and the sooner that we can actually get comfortable with laying down our choices, somebody else can make choices, laying down leadership for like the younger generation to come up behind us. Yeah. I think the more joy that we'll have towards the end of life. This actually built into the aging framework of other cultures in the eastern part of the world. I think particularly people in India. Yeah. It was just understood that when you get into your 50s, instead of like holding on to the CEO position, you actually forfeit it and go all the way back down and learn again. And only then, only after a season of relearning things, can you actually get the status of a guru. So a guru is a person who has been able to be successful and who's been able to give it away freely. Interesting. That's where wisdom and strength is found, and at that crossroads, those are the only suitable people to lead people into the future. Yeah. And so we don't tend to have that in our framework in America. It's always up and to the right, gaining, earning all the way to the end. Yeah. But what our faith teaches us, that it's actually the first is last and last is first. Jesus says, what good is if we gain everything and forfeit our souls? So our souls are at stake here. Yeah. Part of soul development, spiritual development, is learning loss, how to thrive in the midst of loss. Yeah. Those are the worthy people to follow. Yeah. Not just the ones who have corner offices and you got this great resume, right? But going back to our friend David Brooks, friend of the show, he says, don't just work on your resume, work on your eulogy. Yeah. Eulogy stuff tends to be where you served the most, not just where you earned the most. Yeah. So. Yeah.
So if I heard you right, Joe, you're kind of saying that for people who are in leadership, if they are a little bit older, been there for a long time, it takes humility to admit that you might need some new ideas, might want to give someone else some authority, some power. For people who are, if they're younger, maybe even our age, because we're kind of in this boat a little bit. Yeah. If we have ideas or we want change, but we're not really sure how to implement it, we want to respect the people who are ahead of us, but also maybe slowly invite and initiate some of our ideas or some things that we have in our mind. How can we do that well in this area that we're in? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's always best to be invited in any, not just like the young old thing, but any community that we're in. Yeah, like offering unsolicited opinions just doesn't tend to go well. Yeah. But what I've found, and I think you've experienced this too, late 30s, early 40s, there are quite a bit of people that are our parents' age or thereabouts who are wanting to be mentored down or they want to be mentored. However, it is they want you to kind of help them because, they are raising kids of their own who they know them well, but there's a strangeness about them, and they're trying to be faithful to these kids that they love and adore, who they just don't understand, but maybe somebody their age would understand. And so what I'm finding, and I've seen it in every ministry stop that I've been in, there's been this eagerness for the elderly in the community to to ask advice from the younger crowd. So there's that mutual encouragement thing. And so I guess I'd say this, like, let's not get too thirsty. For people our age, don't get too thirsty. Don't get in a hurry.
Yeah.
This is the Greg Popovich line. Like, don't get in a hurry to win the game. Like, there's a lot of tread on our tires.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a long time of being able to help shape culture, help shape committees and stuff that we're on. We don't have to get in a hurry. That does not have to happen today.
Yeah.
We can wait. So maybe it's right now learning the soft skills of being in communities where you can give and receive.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be the pattern for the long run too. There are some of us who have been in church work for a long time. I'm in community with them, and church work is great for the most part. There are times you go through seasons of hardship.
Yeah.
And that hardship comes when there's like, you're trying to harmonize differences of opinion.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can get a little frustrated when folks who are outside of your generation tend to emphasize things that you find quite trivial.
Yeah.
And maybe they can get a little drastic about needing their opinion heard. There are some of us who are saying, we get where they're coming from, and that's their right, of course. But as we get older, we want to try to have a little more grace and flexibility in what's been expressed to us at some point. And there's like this common commitment. If you see me like this, you need to like call me out, type of thing.
Right.
But nevertheless, like, it's going to be our chance to give away too. And so for those who are younger, we're asking people older than us to relinquish some of their influence so that we can have a chance. Would we commit to do the same, like return the favor? Not to them because they're going to be long gone, right? But to the generation coming after us.
Yeah.
We could say, I'm going to return the favor because there were some gracious people who did that before I even deserved it, perhaps, or before I was ready. They included me.
Right.
We're going to do the same thing so that there could be healthy connections in the next generation to come.
I think there's always just this kind of weird thing with power dynamics in business and church, whatever, any kind of culture, where I think the best leaders hold loosely to power, right? Because I think no matter your age, if you're just so gung-ho that you have to be the one to make the decision, it's you or the highway, like whatever, whether you're number one on the chart or 8 or wherever you are, I think the wisest people hold loosely, and they, like you said, like you accept when someone else has a better idea, no matter where they rank. Yeah, run with the best idea, and I think that's what the really good leaders do. That because again, Bob Iger's probably a great guy. He's clearly a great leader, right? But it seems like he was pretty quick to take the reins back when things weren't going well. Yeah, and I just hope that you and me and everyone watching give people above and below you a little more reins, hold the rope loosely, share the burden and the joys of leadership, and I think that's the best way to get things done. Yeah,
I worked for a pastor in Atlanta for a little bit. He was our interim pastor, Dave Peterson. He had just retired from a long tenure post in Houston. And before I was out the door, I said, what's a piece of advice that you'd give young clergy like me? He's like, when I look back, I wish I would have taken a whole lot more things less seriously. He's like, there's really only a handful of things that are worth all the vigor and energy and defensiveness. Yeah, there's a whole lot that sure you need to give your best to, but like a stream, it just passes you by. Yeah, and it passes by very quickly. And those things, if we can't move beyond them, then they can weigh us down for the next decision. We can be distracted for the next several decisions. And so his big piece of advice was, I just wish I wouldn't have been so drastic about all those things. Which is only a small handful that I really gave that energy to. Yep. Yeah. Great advice. Way easier said than done. Oh, right? Yes. Got to do them dishes, man. Do the dishes. That's the quote for today. That's the Taylor Swift bracelet for today. Let's do the dishes. Nice. All right. Well, that's great. Thanks, Joe, for all the insight there. Thanks again to all of you watching and listening. Wrap up here again. One more really big week here at Ridgepoint. Yeah. This is the week when everything really kicks off. So we had all the Wednesday night stuff yesterday. Tuesdays at the table started Tuesday. Sunday's the big day where everything's kicking off on Sunday. All the classes and groups. So if you are connected to Ridgepoint, or even if you're not, this will be another really great chance to come and join us this Sunday. So. Yeah. The prophet Haggai, however you want to say it, says, "Give careful thought to your ways." In chapter 1, neat little passage there. I would just say to Ridgepointers, give careful thought to where you park this week
Yes.
because you might actually spend more time in a different part of the building.
Yeah.
And it might give spaces for other people. I think our parking situation is going to be really interesting. We'll see how it develops. But you just might find yourself in a new parking spot. And you might find, this is easier to park here.
Yeah. Better for you and better for everyone else.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks again for watching. Hope to see you Sunday and next Thursday.
See you next time.
Thanks, guys.